Join Linwood Jackson every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. for the all-new Linwood Jackson radio show on WFAI 1510 AM. Every Sunday, Linwood will tackle the issues close to your heart, from civil rights and politics to community affairs around the first state and the nation. Linwood speaks on the issues facing citizens in our area on a weekly basis, but his show is so much more. Linwood will talk about his passions, such as dancing and traveling the world and helping people broaden their horizons while embracing different cultures. That's the Linwood Jackson radio show every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on the all-new WFAI 1510 AM.
Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to the Linwood Jackson Radio Show. I'm your host, and I want to thank you for joining me today. We're on WFAI 1510 AM, and you can tell your friends and family that they can tune in anywhere in the world on their computers at www.wfai1510.com/programs/20. We're going to get on with the show as usual. We're going to ask you to get your pen and paper ready because we're going to be putting out a lot of good information for you. I think we have our guest on the line. Hello? Hello. Weatta Frazier Collins. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on at this hour.
Well,
Such a pleasure.
Well, you know what, Miss Collins, it's a pleasure having you on. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Weatta Frazier Collins. She is the president and CEO of The Legacy Exists. A Smokin Joe Frazier scholarship program is up and running. And Miss Collins is doing a great job. She is one of Smokin Joe Frazier's children. And we got on the line, and we're just glad to have you on. How you doing today, Miss Collins?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. There's no need to complain because if you complain, nobody's going to really listen anyway. It's okay.
I know that's right. You know, and I complain every Sunday on the air, and nobody says nothing. But you know what? We're going to keep on cracking at it because we got to if we don't. You know, I was talking to you yesterday, though.
Yeah.
At the opening of the gym. Tell us what you think about that.
Well, I actually think it's a fabulous thing. Mr. James Gibbs has been on point for such a long time now, and to take the initiative to get back to the community and to want to help out young men and women perform their craft as far as boxing and conditioning themselves is such a wonderful thing. And doing it right there in Wilmington is a blessing because it's overdue. So it's a very good thing that they're doing.
I agree with you 100%. You know, he's right there in the heart of Wilmington, as you said, and right where we need it the most. Our kids, you know, in the city there, they got it rough right there. No activities to keep them involved in things. And speaking of a gym, I know. Well, first off, I got to tell the listeners that Smokin Joe Frazier, one of the greatest heavyweight boxing champions of all time, the former world heavyweight champion who passed away in 2011 at age 67, was actually born in South Carolina, but he settled in Philadelphia and called Philly his home. Frazier was an Olympic gold medal winner in 1964, and he was most noted for some of his professional matches with Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Jerry Quarry, Buster Mathis, and Jimmy Young. Two of his biggest losses were with Ali, including the Thriller in Manila. But then he came back with the fight of the century, held in March 1971, and won the 15-round unanimous decision over Ali in what was billed the fight of the century. We have one of his children on the line right now, Miss Weatta Frazier Collins, and it's just a pleasure to speak with you. I had to get you on here, talk a little bit about boxing and what's going on. And we talked yesterday, we were at the grand opening of a gym, and I know your father had the gym, Smokin Joe Frazier's gym. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with that? Is it still standing?
The gym is still actually there, and I must tell you that because of some of the changes in the community and in the world, my father became tired and weary. He became disgusted about a lot of things, and he thought that the young men and women were not trying to be disciplined. The gym was actually ran by him and other family members, and he just got tired. He just didn't think that some of the boxers that were coming through North Philadelphia, they they didn't want to make the sacrifices that they actually needed to become champions and warriors. So he actually sold the gym to one of my cousins, and unfortunately, she wasn't willing to continue the ideas of the gym, and she wound up selling it to a furniture store. So at this time, that's exactly what's happening down at 2917 North Broad Street, right off of Glenwood Avenue. It's a furniture store. I must tell you that an aunt of mine and other family members have been involved, that it's now declared as an historical site.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it is. It's listed as an historical site, so the current owner, he has to be mindful of the things that he wants to do with the gym. And as far as moving forward, there are other individuals that I'm hearing from time to time that would like to purchase it back. So if that happens, it would be, it's already a milestone, but it would be a blessing to bring it back and name it as a gym all over again, or a recreational center, so that the kids in that community will have some place to actually go.
I agree 100%. Put Joe Frazier's name back on it where it belongs, and this great historical landmark. I'm glad they're calling it a landmark, and we just need to get Joe's name back on there.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. His name is still on the building, and because it's an historical landmark, they can put signs around it or above it or underneath it or on the side of it, but they can't take the Joe Frazier gym name off of it. So it's actually on there, but we got to get things back inside, so to speak.
Right. I agree 100%. And that's a good tribute and a good thing. He put his name up on there. If they take his name off, they're going to take half that wall off, I presume.
Right, and then they would have to deal with the historians, and they don't want to have to do that. And
I know
get fined and things of that nature. But they're very kind people down there.
Now, your father, I think he had 11 children?
That is correct.
And where do you fall in there?
My mother and father had 5 children, so I guess I am probably the 5th child, because my father actually had 4 children prior to me.
Okay, and how many of you box? Do you box?
No.
Did you get into the sport of boxing?
I'm approximately 5'3" and weigh about 150 pounds. A little overweight than what I probably should be, but I'm more muscle than anything. You look at me and they say, "Oh my goodness, is that how much you weigh?" And yeah, it's the truth. But as far as boxers in my family, there was of course Marvis, and then my sister Jacqueline, my brother Hector, and recently, within the last few years, my youngest brother, Derek Dennis, he has actually been boxing on the side. But not a professional, but the other 3 were professional boxers.
So it is definitely, boxing is definitely in the Frazier family.
That is correct, yes. And I must tell you that I have siblings that we don't box necessarily in the ring, but we box as advocates. We box on our job to make sure that things are done. My father had a very famous quote of getting the job done. So we're getting the job done on other ends other than boxing, and that's one of the main reasons why I started the Legacy Exists. It's a scholarship program that we're putting together for children in the 5 county areas of Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties, for individuals that are between the ages of 13 to 19. And when we started putting this together, we were thinking that maybe we should just do this for the athletes. Maybe we should just do this for the boxers. And we started looking, and of course, my father was a great humanitarian, and sometimes he actually thought that he was a better singer than he thought that he was a fighter. So we decided that we would open it up for any teenager that wanted to apply for the scholarship, and then state what they would do with these funds, how Joe Frazier inspired him, or her, to just, if they wanted to take voice lessons or piano lessons, or if they wanted to do Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, if they wanted to be a football player, not just to just leave it to one extent, because my father enjoyed all different sports and other activities, and it's very sad that in the majority of all of our communities that the kids, after school, they don't have any venues to go to, that they don't have any funds to actually, unless you're middle class or your parents are working, some additional jobs and so forth and so on. So
Right.
the main thing was to keep his legacy alive, and that's why we called it the legacy, exists, because as far as some children are concerned, they don't even know who Joe Frazier is. I have a daughter that graduated from St. John's University, and she did one of her papers on Joe Frazier, and she presented it, and the professor was very happy, and he asked, well, why would you, out of all these individuals in the world, why would you pick Smokin' Joe Frazier to actually do your report on? And one of the students, she said, oh, I just like the guy, that kind of stuff. And one of the students said, well, isn't that, your uncle or something? Or wasn't he related to you? And we're humble individuals. Long story short, the professor was very shocked that she didn't even make it her business to tell everyone that her father was Joe Frazier.
Wow.
But we come from a family that we have to work hard. We come from a family that if you have the ability to get up in the morning and you have life in you, that you should get the job done, that you, whatever your goal is, whether or not you want to be a teacher or whether or not you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, you must always get the job done. And sometimes to do those things, of course, you need some funds. So we're going to try and make sure that his legacy exists. Our mission is to pay homage and honor the legacy of the late, great Smokin' Joe Frazier by providing funds for the educational, recreational, and social programs for the youth.
Wow. And the kids, I suppose, have to maintain good grades in school.
Absolutely. We're working on our website. The criteria is out there. The website is thelegacyexists.com, and we're going to have our first banquet come March of 2016. But moving forward to next month, as of January the 12th, 2015, we're going to unveil his statue. And we're so humble and so grateful that the statue is finally going to come and be in existence. It's going to be down at 1100 Patterson Avenue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is the location where the Spectrum was.
Yeah, Xfinity.
Yes. So Xfinity Live is between the Lincoln Financial Field where the Eagles play, and the Eagles won last night, which was great.
Yes. I was there, actually.
Okay. And then there is the Phillies right across the street. So when we got together and we said that we're going to figure out what we're going to do as far as this Joe Frazier statue is concerned, I must tell you that I got a little bit beside myself for the simple fact that they were saying, okay, well, let's put it down at City Hall. Okay. And then one person said, well, no, let's put it down there at the sports complex, because he was known more for a sports figure other than a fighter. And then I said, well, I don't have a problem with it being three of them. Okay, that's my dad, and I'm a little modest here. Well, we can put one down at City Hall with him in a three-piece suit.
Right.
And then we can go and put one down at 2917 North Broad Street with him having a jogging suit on. And then the third one we can put down in the Xfinity Live.
Right.
And, the powers to be said, well, all right, we're going to do one. And he's in his position of throwing his left hook and not extended, but when it's almost completely down and his back is arched a little bit, and he's in a pair of trunks, and he's probably approximately 27 to 28 years of age as far as this particular pose is concerned.
Right.
And it is fantastic.
If I'm not mistaken, that is the pose that floored Muhammad Ali when he won the heavyweight title in 1971.
Yes, this is correct. And the artist is Steve Lane, and we're so grateful for his vision. When he came down to the committee and began to tell them, what he knew about Joe Frazier and and this particular pose that he actually had, because there were a couple of other shots, and some of them with his hands directly up. One of them had his hand down, and this particular gentleman, he was the second pick because the original sculpture had passed away. And then they needed to backtrack and say, okay, well, now we got to find another guy. And Steve Lane is the one that everyone picked, and he did a fantastic job.
I know that's right. Well, listen, maybe you can take us to break because we're coming up on one. And when we get back, we're going to continue to talk about the gym being a historical landmark, the statue that's gone up by the Xfinity Live, and the scholarship fund, and more.
This is Weatta Frazier Collins, founder and president of The Legacy Exists, and we will be right back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You listen to the Linwood Jackson Radio Show on WFAI 1510 AM. You still on the line?
Absolutely, yes.
Thanks for taking us into commercial. I couldn't have done it better myself.
I am truly blessed. Let me tell you something. My father, he was such a special individual where he said, if you just take the time out to do what needs to be done, everything will be all right. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
I know that's right. Well, your father was special. He had a stellar boxing career. It ended with a record of 32 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw with 27 knockouts. And, he won the WBC heavyweight title belt, actually unified belts, but with the WBC heavyweight title, he gave that belt to Nelson Mandela in 1991.
Yes, absolutely. I have pictures. Yes.
And why would, that's generous, to say the least. We all know Nelson Mandela was a big boxing fan and a big Joe Frazier.
Yes, but you know what? He was also a boxer at one time, from what I understood.
Yes. That's right.
I believe the concept of what my father thought was he never was truly recognized for those skills. And the great humanitarian person that my dad was like, okay, all these accolades that you guys are giving me, it's not even necessary, because he thought, this is my job. And if each and every one of us can get up and do their jobs, whether or not you're cutting the grass, or whether or not you're a butcher cutting meat, or you're a teacher, or whatever you're doing, a scientist, if you get up and do your job and you get paid for it, that should be enough. But to reward someone all the time, it is not even necessary. But he thought that in this case, when it came to Nelson Mandela, because he was such a great man, let me at least honor him. And that's why he gave him his belt.
Wow.
Yes.
What do you think was your father's greatest accomplishment as a boxer?
I would think that him being the undisputed champ, no matter who he had to fight against.
I know
to actually be able to be dominant and to be the greatest that he could actually be. Muhammad Ali once said to him that if you beat me this now, I'm going to crawl on the other side of the ring, and made all these accolades. But his greatest is to be great. To be the best that you can possibly be. And that's what he did when he was mentoring the children and when he had the gym. Be the best that you can be. If this is what you want to do, it's going to take a lot of hard work. He didn't think that he could be a teacher, but he actually was. Not necessarily sitting and being a professor or, sitting in front of a classroom, but he was a great mentor.
He led by example.
Right, exactly. Trying to tell these children, like if you would like to be a boxer, it's not going to be a problem. At first, he had a little problem with the women wanting to be a boxer, but he got over that. And said, what we're going to do is we're going to make an adjustment here, because then you need to have the necessary padding up top, not necessarily downtown, with the boxers and the male figures, but we're going to make sure that you got the right equipment, and you're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to eat right. You're going to have to sleep right.
Well, back in those days, people didn't take women boxers seriously then. It was fairly new.
Right.
Actually, wasn't fairly new, but as far as being on the radar, I think women been boxing since 1904 or something like that, but not a lot. And up until that time, as a matter of fact, your sister got in the game around then.
Yes,
Sister Smoke.
yes, yes. He was given that name from Muhammad Ali.
Really?
And yes, and Layla and Jackie actually did fight together, and now they're just doing their own little fights in their own personal lives. My sister is a municipal judge, and I believe that Layla is doing well in her own personal career and keeping things in line with her profession.
Hmm. And actually, in those days, I remember vividly George Foreman, Roberto Duran, Archie Moore, all of these guys had daughters in the ring.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's
But
crazy
yes, but
to
I'll tell
think
you
about.
this much: that's not something that I would ever want to do because I don't know. I went to Germantown Academy and then Plymouth White Marsh High School,
Hmm.
and sports really wasn't my thing. And when I actually got to Plymouth White Marsh High School, I didn't even play any sports. And my decision of not playing any sports was because I didn't want to have to follow behind. It was more like the civil rivalry, in a
Hmm.
little nice way,
Hmm.
because my sister and brothers were, all athletes, all around the athletes. They did this and that. I'm thinking, okay, I'm done with that. But while I was at Germantown Academy for the 4 years that I was there, I was doing my thing and playing basketball and field hockey and
Hmm.
softball, but it's not something that I actually wanted to do.
You mean boxing?
And boxing too, that's right. Not something that I wanted to do.
Well, that's all right. You know, there's
Yes,
something for everybody, and you just ran off a list of the things that you did do
yes,
and what you are doing. Some great work in keeping your father's legacy alive with the statue and the Legacy Exists Scholarship
yes,
Fund, the gym being a historical landmark. You know, Philadelphia is full of historical landmarks in our community, and the first thing, they want to do is knock them down. I'm thinking about the Uptown Theater, another historical landmark that we should be trying to keep up and rebuild. They're going through some things right now at the Uptown. I know you're
okay.
familiar with that. Your father, I'm sure, frequented there. They had all the top musicians at the time going there, and so
Right.
you're doing some great work to be able to do what you're doing. I want to have they named a street after Joe Frazier in
Actually, there
Philadelphia?
is. Not in Philadelphia, but there is one in South Carolina where he grew up,
Okay.
in Laurel Bay. And someone was asking me, as a matter of fact, last week, how come they have never named a library or a municipal building or a school
Mm-hmm.
or a playground? And I don't have the answer for that, other than my father, when he was alive, he felt so humble. It was like, why are you spending money on that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Because, truth to be told, Governor Ed Rendell and Bob Brady and some other dignitaries wanted to do a statue for him while he was alive.
Right.
And when he found out how much money it would actually cost to do this statue, he said, listen, man, y'all need to just go ahead and put y'all money into something else. You want to do a statue on me
Mm-hmm.
for what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I may have won all these belts and all these awards, but what you need to be doing is giving the money back to the kids and putting up a statue made of metal or bronze or
Mm-hmm.
plaster or whatever you're going to put it, wherever you're going to put it, is a waste of money.
Well,
So,
Joe Frazier's legacy in Philadelphia is just phenomenal, and we need to. And I'm glad we are honoring him with the statue.
yes,
I mean, they put up the Rocky, the art museum. You know what I mean? And we not nothing to honor a legitimate heavyweight champion like your father, straight out of Philly. It was just ridiculous. So most of your father's fans is like, what took him so long?
well,
What took him so long? The
I'm
city need
telling
to.
you, sometimes he was his worst enemy, and
Yeah,
he was such a humble man, and
I got that, but they should have did it anyway while he was here.
yeah,
We need to smell our roses while we can
I
smell them.
I agree with that, and I told my family when I meet my demise, please don't have anybody send a whole bunch of money for the florist to make out.
Hmm.
Put one spread on top, and then the rest of the money find some type of foundation to send the money to. And we did that actually with my father because he passed away with cancer. So anyone that wanted to donate flowers, and you can't stop people from doing what they want to do. We, of course, got flowers, but other individuals, they sent money to the Cancer Society, and we were grateful for that.
Well, they can also send money to your legacyexist.com. You have a donation tab there, I'm sure. You have where you honor. You have a tab where you showcase your sponsors, people that donate
so far,
money.
Yes. All that information is actually
you can
on
fill out
the
an
website.
application there if you want to get some monies or a scholarship
That is correct.
from the likeness of Joe Smokin, Joe Frazier's humanitarianism. And get on there. If you're listening, you get in there. If you got a couple extra dollars, donate to this great cause and help keep our legend memory alive in the city. Like you stated earlier, young folks, there's a lot of young folks being born today, going through school and don't know the legacy of Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Yes, well, we're going to try and actually keep that going. And if I can just make a statement, you mentioned about Rocky Balboa and the statue. My father was an individual that taught his children very bluntly not to hate the player, but to hate the game. And Mr. Gibbs corrected me a couple of weeks ago and basically said how I had to get in the game. Sylvester Stallone is a friend of some of the family members of the Fraziers. And the main thing in the concept is he showed Philadelphia a lot of love. Got a lot of individuals jobs when he comes down and he does his movies. Okay? And just so happened that that statue was done, and it was outside of the spectrum. And the individuals that owned the property said, Sly, you're going to have to come get your piece. Where you want it? You want it to go in storage? Where do you want it to go? Okay? And him and his marketing team, they got the job done. How Joe Frazier used to say, get the job done. They went around and they said, well, can we put it here? And somebody said no. Can we put it there? Somebody else said no. And then he went to the art museum and, was like, well, can we put it here? And they said yes. So we're never, ever going to hate individuals.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Because the statements are being made to me within the last few months about a fictional character, and I don't even want, to be honest with you, my father put in the same category because he's not. So I appreciate that, though. Thank you.
And kudos to Sylvester Stallone, who did bring Philadelphia on the map and boxing, and he did a lot of great achievements. But we're talking about Smokin' Joe Frazier getting his due props, and I'm just glad that he's getting them now. Again, with the gym being a historical landmark, that's huge. That is huge. The statue, that's huge. The Legacy Exists Scholarship Fund. These are great ways to pay tribute to a great man. And I'm so glad. Now, I would like to see the city of Philadelphia step up. I guess this is a shout out to Mayor Nutter. I know and we need a Joe Frazier Boulevard.
Oh, wow.
In Philadelphia.
And can you tell me where you would like for that to be?
I would like for it to be right going to next, along with Broad Street, Walnut Street. Really at this point, just put it there. Get a street. Joe Frazier Boulevard needs to happen. To me, that would complete the legacy for Philadelphia, paying homage to a great man who did some great things for the city and for the sport of boxing as a whole. Ms. Collins, tell me, what would one word be that you would think describes your father?
Hero. Did you get that, Mr.
Hero.
Jackson?
Hero.
I have been working in the insurance industry for 30 years. And the vice president of the company that I work for came up to me a couple of years ago and asked me if it was true. And I looked around because my name is Weatta Collins on my business cards. It's Weatta Collins on my paycheck. And he asked me whether or not it was true. And I said, what? He said, is it true that you're Joe Frazier's daughter? And I said, yes. And he said, well, why don't you tell me? And then I said to him, Mr. So-and-so, is it true that you're so-and-so's son?
Okay.
And he said, well, that's different. I said, no, not where I come from. It's not any different, And he said, well, I want you to know that your father was my hero.
Yes.
Your father, if it wasn't for him in Philadelphia, I don't think that I would be where I am today. And that spoke volumes. And I said, well, I hope that your children that you have, the 3 that you have, that they're going to call you hero, because no matter what, even if my father, even if he didn't know his job and his capacity, that he was this great father, he still would have been a hero to me.
You know what? That's very sweet and humble of you. But I had to think that was one of the best compliments that you've ever received about your father.
Yes.
That's a huge compliment, and I have to agree with that statement as well. He was a hero to us all. When he knocked out Ali, I mean, boy, I screamed.
Well, I must tell you that some people were Ali fans now.
Oh yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Speaking of one that I can remember that I just read that I didn't know, because my father kept us away from a lot of
negative,
a lot of the politics, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff that boxers go through. There were threats on our lives when my father used to box. It wasn't always a pretty sight, let me just say that. And I'm grateful that he tried to keep us humble and to let us know that we are no bigger or any better than any other human being. That if you want something out of life, you got to get up in the morning and go work for it. Nobody's going to give you anything. And there was a time when a couple of individuals in Las Vegas wanted us to move to Las Vegas, especially like when he retired. He started his musical group, The Knockouts, and they wanted him to, perform at one of the casinos like 3-4 nights a week. And he's like, well, I've got a family. There's no way that I'm going to move them, to Las Vegas. And his philosophy was like, listen, you are not going to grow up entitled. You have your own destiny. He didn't say legacy, but he used to say how you got to find your own way. Like, Daddy will help you. The biggest and the most important thing that my father taught me as a young adult was when I turned 16. And, of course, my mother and him, they're planning my sweet 16 birthday party. And I said, okay. Well, they said, what do you want? And I told them all the stuff that I wanted. Who do you want to invite? I told them all the stuff and the individuals that I wanted, and they said, fine. And my mother said, well, this is going to be my gift to you. I'm going to give you this ring, and I still have this ring to this day, okay? I wear it on my right finger. It had to be resized a couple of times because I put on some pounds, but that's okay. But I still have the ring. And then my father said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride down to Florida. Matter of fact, I'm going to fly. And I'm going to do a commercial for them, and they're going to give me this Toyota Celica.
Wow.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive this Celica back. I said, okay, you want to give me a car? He said, yep, everybody gets a car when they're 16. If you study and you get your license, you'll have this car. Great. He said, and it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to make sure that you have the insurance. I'm going to make sure that you have the maintenance. We got to change the oil every now and then. You got to check the tires and the pressure and everything. We'll keep your car clean and everything. I said, well, that's fantastic. He said, but one thing. I said, what? He said, if you want to drive it, you're going to have to get a job. Daddy ain't putting no money in the gas for you to be riding around here with your little friends. And my jaw dropped. I was
thought he was going to put the gas in there, too.
He said he was not putting gas in my car.
A free ride, right?
He said, I'm going to get you the car. I'm going to put insurance on it. You're going to get the maintenance done. You're not going to have a problem. It's going to get you to A to Z. Not A to B, A to Z. It's going to be fine. But if you want to ride it and you want to drive it, you're going to have to get a job because I'm not putting no gas in it.
All right, now. That's right.
That's valuable because you know what I had to do then?
Got you going out to work. You going to figure out how to get that money.
I had to go get a job. My very first job at 16 was working at Burger King in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania.
You too?
My
Joe Frazier's daughter worked at McDonald's. Burger King.
Report to the king. Okay, flipping burgers. And after I was flipping burgers, then the French fries, and then I was a cashier.
A great foundation for
Yes,
a lot of
because
young
it taught you the discipline. I had to be to work on time. I got my little reviews and things,
I know
and I
that's
still
right.
was in school, so I had to go to school, and it's such a foundation. Someone once told me, a friend of my husband's, he said, "Listen, all these kids, when they graduate from high school, they need to go right into the military." Like in some countries,
Discipline.
it's just the rule because
Right.
it teaches them discipline.
Mhm.
We live in the best country in the world.
Yes.
You know, there are women overseas that they're so restricted in doing what they want to do. Can you imagine if a woman over in Iraq said she wanted to be a boxer?
Yeah. Impossible.
Can you imagine? So the greatest gift that he's ever given me is just to be loyal to myself, to be respectful, and my parents, my mother's still alive, but my father was a Christian, you know, to honor thy father and thy mother, you know. So I'm so blessed and so grateful, and I have 3 children of my own, and I'm just trying to pass that down to them. My kids are 30, 22, and 21 almost. And I'm just so grateful just to be able to have the Frazier blood running in my vein and, you know, all the wisdom that we passed down from generation to generation.
I know that's right. Well, from what I'm hearing, you're doing a great job, and they shouldn't have no problem. We're coming down to the final minutes, and I just wanted to, if you can repeat the website one more time where we can find out. One more question. Is there any memorabilia for sale on a website, like jackets and gloves from the great Smokin' Joe Frazier?
No, there aren't any memorabilia that actually comes from the legacy exists. We work with Darren Prince Marketing Group, and he has a couple of items that my father actually signed and gave to him before he met his demise. When we actually unveil the statue, there will be T-shirts and hats that will be available that day.
And what day is that again? What day?
That is September the 12th, 2015, from 1 to 4. And I'm so happy to say that it is my brother Marvis's birthday, and he is ecstatic. Like
I know that's right.
My birthday is September the 18th, and when we started to plan it, it was like, okay, we're going to plan it in April, and then they had to change it. We're going to plan it in June, and they had to change it. And then Xfinity started doing some construction because they wanted to expand one of their restaurants, and they said, okay, how about September the 12th? I almost fell off my chair.
Wow. September the 12th at the Xfinity Live.
Xfinity Live, yes.
Be there.
Yes.
I know all the Frazier clan will be there.
Yes, hopefully.
At the unveiling of the Joe Frazier statue, a 9-foot-tall, 1,800-pound sculpture of the late, great Smokin' Joe Frazier. Ms. Frazier, we're going to let you go. We got a few minutes left. I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on the show.
Yes.
And tell us any closing remarks.
Yes. Thank you for all that you've done as far as the community is concerned. The legacy exists, is currently receiving donations. We hope to see you all September the 12th from 1 to 4 down at Xfinity Live, and also at the gala event in March of 2016. God bless to you all.
All right, I'll be looking for my
you.
invite, and we can check you out on or you're on the social media pages at all.
Yes, I actually am. There's the Legacy Exists through Instagram and Facebook. So you guys can reach out to us, and we'll love to hear from you all. And thank you all for the love of the late, great Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Weatta Frazier Collins, daughter of Smokin' Joe. Thank you so very, very much.
All right, take care.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to the Little Judge Radio Show on WFAI 1510 AM, and you got it. Here we go. We're closing on down. And as we close, I just want you guys to know that thank you for tuning in. We're on each and every Sunday, 2 to 3. Become a Facebook fan. Like us over there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel in case you missed any of the shows. And as we go, let me say thank you for listening. I want to thank you all for spending time with us. I know your time is valuable, and you can't get it back. You could have been anywhere, and it's a great day out there. In fact, you spent it with us, and that means the world to me. I want you guys to take care and remember that at no time do we condone wrongness. on either side of the wall. We just talked to Miss Weatta Frazier Collins, one of Joe Frazier's sisters. She just gave us a wealth of information from where he was coming from, and that is, just walk right and do the right thing. Help somebody if you can. And remember, coming from me, if you can walk, you can dance, because life is a dance. You learn as you go. Sometimes you lead, and sometimes you just got to follow. Hey, don't worry about what you don't know, because life's a dance. You learn as you go. Ladies, meet me on the dance floor. Guys, beat me there. I am out of here. I hope you had a great day and you enjoyed the show. Tune in again next week, 2 to 3, WFAI 1510. Linwood Jackson. See ya.